Hi guys, this is the video for Chapter 8, Lesson 8. So let's do a little bit of review over our previous lesson as we begin with our lesson today. Okay, so previously in Chapter 8, Lesson 7, we talked about something called the slope-intercept form. And so this is a formula that I described kind of like a code where you can translate the information from the formula to become a line on a graph. And so the equation was y equals mx plus b. And we talked about how m represents the slope and b represents the intercept on the y-axis. So we call that the y-intercept, where it crosses on the y-axis. So if I gave you an equation that was y equals 2/3 x plus 4, that means to translate this onto a graph and the image of what that would look like, it would be intercepting on positive 4 on the y, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so that would be my starting point. That's where it's crossing over on the y. And then the slope of the line is 2/3, which means it goes up 2 to the right 3. And so I can draw those arrows to help me make sense of where the direction of the line is going. So it's going up 2 to the right 3. And I could keep counting like it's a stair step. Up 2 to the right 3. Okay? And then I could connect my line, going through all those points. And that's my line. So I basically turned the picture or the equation of this line into a picture right there. So this is the direct picture as a line on a graph. So what we're going to look at today is a few things. One of them is that if you were given the slope and you were given the y-intercept, turn this into an equation. So if I said the slope was 1/2 or maybe -1/2, let's do that, and the y-intercept was at 3, then you're going to turn this into equation by writing it out as y equals -1/2 x plus 3. Okay? Let's talk about if the slope was 0. So if the slope was 0, what would our equation be? So if the slope was 0, I would erase this slope, replace that with 0. Well, guess what? What's 0 times x? Isn't that just 0? So really, my equation would just be y equals 3, which means I've got a graph that's going through the y-axis because the intercept is at 3. It's going through the y-axis at 3, but it does not have a slope. So it's just a horizontal line like that. And so when you see y equals a number, that's just a horizontal line with no slope. Okay, let's take a look at our study guide. So on our study guide, let's take a look at 1, 2, and 3. Let's turn this information into a equation with slope-intercept form, okay? So slope is 1, intercept is 2. So we're going to write this as y equals 1x plus 2. Now 1 times x is just x. So could you also write it as y equals x plus 2? I think so. And so that works. Both of these are optional answers. All right, let's do number 2. Slope is -3/4. So I'm going to write this as -3. And I like to just put my negative on the top. So then that tells me the direction is it's going down. And the y-intercept is at -5. So yes, you could write this as plus -5, but you could also just write it as -5. And that would be the equation. Okay, number 3, slope is 0. So think through this. If you have 0 times x and the y-intercept is -3, then there's no slope and your equation is just y equals -3. 3. And that's it. Okay, the next thing we're going to take a look at is a big concept. We might take 2 days to go over this in class. So if you are at home and you are watching this, I would like for you to take really good notes over this part, okay? So I'm going to show notes on the whiteboard, and I'm going to guide you through what you should write down in your notes, okay? And we are going, okay, so we're going to take really good notes over this lesson, okay? Title this 8-8 point slope form, okay? We're going to take a look at a new kind of line equation, kind of like your y equals mx plus b, where it's code, basically it's code for changing your equation into a line where you can draw it out. So this new equation we're going to take a look at is called point slope form, and that's because it gives you, in the equation, it gives you the point and it gives you the slope. So this is how the equation looks. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So let's break this down a little bit, and I'm going to kind of put this in a little bolded bomb thing, because this is a really big equation that we want to understand and know. We can decode it. So you guys know what m is, right? M is just the slope. So no big deal there. We know what m is. Y1 and x1, these are coordinates of a point. A point on the line. And so the points are going to be x1, y1. So don't think that this 1 is a comma. It's actually a number, x1 and y1. So let's say I have a line, and let's say my line goes through the point 2, 3. 2, 3. And this line has a slope, not a great drawing, but has a slope of going up 1, up 2 over 1, okay? So it has a slope of 2 over 1, which is just 2, okay? So this is like a line that we have, and you don't need to draw this. You don't need to write this down. But if we were to want to write this as an equation, we could write it as y minus 3 equals 2 times x minus 2. So see how I put the point that's on my line into the position where x1 and y1 is, this 2, 3. The y goes here and the x goes here. So even though the order of it is like y and then x, but still as a point is x first and then y. So my point is x and then y, and then I'd replace it into where the x goes and where the y goes. And then my slope is 2. So this is my slope, and I'm going to put that right there. So when you turn this into your equation, you can see that this equation gives you the slope, and then it also gives you the a point on a graph. That's the lines going through. And so notice that the template equation is a subtraction sign here, where it's y minus y1 and x minus x1. So when I write my equation out, I'm also going to keep it as negative, even though that these points are positive, because my original equation says it's a negative, or a subtraction sign. I don't want to change that. So let's talk about if my point was at a different location, okay? So I'm going to erase this. let's say, I'm not going to draw the graph this time, but let's say that our point that was given to us was -3, negative 6. So I replace this into my equation, and let's say the slope was 1/3, okay? So this is my equation here. If I were to write this as a point slope form, I would write it as y minus -6 equals 1/3 times x minus -3. Now, here's the problem. I don't normally like to have two operations side by side. So is there a way we can condense subtracting a, excuse me, subtracting a negative? We can add the opposite, right? Add the opposite. So if we're adding a positive, really it's the same thing as just writing plus. So here's the thing. If you see your equation says y plus a number equals slope times x plus a number, if it's positive, if it's adding, that means your points are actually negatives. Okay, so I don't know if it might take a little bit of practice for this to sink in because it's kind of a newer concept, but because your template equation is a subtraction sign, whatever numbers are replaced with x and y, if they are also being subtracted, that means those points are just positive. But if your equation is an addition sign where it should be subtraction, that means these points are the opposite sign. So that means this would be -3, -6, just like what we have here, okay? And so this would become your equation. Okay, so with that in mind, so I'm gonna say that y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. This is an important equation, and we kind of understand, okay, this is the slope, these are the points. All right, so we're going to apply this to how we can work out number 4 on our study guide. So if you look at number 4 on your study guide, what they've given you are 2 points. Okay, so here's our dilemma. Here's my big question. Okay, how do I turn 2 points into an equation in slope intercept form? And that would be y equals mx plus b. That would be slope intercept form. Okay, so that's the big dilemma. How do I turn 2 points into an equation in slope intercept form? Well, we're going to take some really good notes over this process, so make sure you get your notes out. And we're going to use what we just learned in this process. So the step-by-step process, okay? The points, let's say the points given to us, we'll say that these are the points from number 4. So we've got 6, 2, and 3, 1. Do this in your notes, okay? Step 1. Our step 1 is to find the slope. Do you guys know how to find the slope given 2 points? To find the slope, you can just do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This is the slope equation, finding the slope. So basically, I can just plug in. If this is x1, y1, x2, y2, then what I would have is 1 minus 2 over 3 minus 6. When I subtract, I have -1 over -3. And a negative over a negative is just positive. So my slope is 1/3. So I just found the slope. M equals 1/3. Okay, we need the slope because every equation that we've looked at so far when it comes to lines has slope in it. So if you don't have slope, you can't go anywhere. You have to have the slope. That's really important. So because we have 2 points, we can actually find the slope given the point. Okay, step 2. Substitute slope and 1 point into point slope form. Okay. In point slope form, remember it is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. That's point slope form, remember? So we're going to substitute the slope that we just found and one of these points into our slope intercept form. I'm going to use a different color here. So one of these points, I would say, well, first of all, here's my slope, and then let's just use 6, 2. Okay, so that's what I'm going to sub into my equation. So I'm going to write this as y minus 2 equals 1/3 times x minus 6. So I subbed it in, and now the cool thing is I'm going to solve the equation. Or simplify the equation, not really solve it, I guess. Solve the equation and change it into slope intercept form. Okay, which means here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it in red. The equation is y minus 2 equals 1/3 x minus 6. I'm going to solve by distributing into my parentheses and make this y minus 2 equals 1/3 times x minus, what's 1/3 times 6? Minus 2. 1/3 of 6 is 2. And then I'm going to combine my like terms. So I've got -2 here, -2 here. I'm going to add 2 to both sides, plus 2, plus 2. Oh my goodness, what just happened? Okay, the 2 goes away, the -2 and the +2 cancel out. What I have here is y equals 1/3 x, and -2 plus 2 is 0. So y equals 1/3 x. That means I have a slope where the intercept is actually going through at 0, 0, because this is +0. That's invisible, right? +0. And it's going up 1 to the right 3, up 1 to the right 3. So that's my line. And that's it. Okay, it was a long process, but we did it. So three big steps. Find the slope using the 2 points, substitute the slope and 1 point into this equation, and then rearrange your equation by simplifying and writing it as y equals mx plus b. And this one didn't have a plus b because b was 0. Okay, we're going to do number 5 together. And so we're going to do this process one more time. Let's take a look at what we have on number 5. So if we wanted to, if we wanted to write our answer here, we could say y equals 1/3 x, and that's it. That's the equation. Okay, so you obviously don't have enough room to do all this, all those 3 steps in this little space, because that's a lot of work we need to do. So just know that your work on your homework especially is going to take, quite a few steps. So let's do number 5. Number 5 is 8, 8 and -4, 5. So let's follow our steps again. See if you want to pause it and try it, you sure can. So I'm going to start that off here, and you can kind of play and check your work to see if it works out. 8, 8 and -4, 5. Those are my 2 points. Okay, so step 1, find the slope. Find the slope. So I'm going to subtract I've got my x1, y1, x2, y2. I could also make this x1, y1 and x2, y2. So I could do 5 minus 8 if I wanted to, and -4 minus 8 if I wanted to. I could do that. So when I subtract, or I could do 8 minus 5, and then 8 minus -4. So I could do that as well. Either way is fine, as long as it's one whole point subtracting another whole point. So when I do this, I have, this becomes positive 11, or no, 12, positive 12, right? And then this becomes -3. So this is, if I simplify this, is -1/4. Okay, if I worked this out here, No, this is a negative sign, right? Just double checking, making sure I got this right. Okay, so this is a positive, I think. Let's just double check this one. So this would be 3 over 4 plus, wait, sorry. Um, my handwriting's not very good. So let me rewrite this here. So this would be 5 or 8 minus 5 over 8 minus negative 4. So, okay, so if I do this, I add the opposite. And so this would be 3 over 12. And when I simplify that, that's 1 over 4. So same thing here, that's a negative. So it's negative 1 over 4 or 1 over 4 is a positive. They're both the same, right? Negative 1 over a negative 4 is the same as 1 over 4. So that's my slope. And you only had to do one of these, but I wanted to show you that you could do it either way. Okay, step 2 is sub in your information. Short way of saying sub in your slope and sub in one of these points. I'm going to sub in, I think I'm going to sub in this point because it's all positive. It's 8, positive 8. And then I'm going to sub in my slope into my equation of, so into y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I'm going to sub it in. So here we go. Y minus 8 equals 1/4 times x minus 8. Okay, step 3. Simplify and change it to y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to simplify by just using what I know to work out algebraic equations, by getting rid of my parentheses, distributing this in. So 1/4 times x is 1/4 x. 1/4 times negative 8 is negative 2. And then I have y minus 8, so I'm going to add 8 on both sides. And I'm running out of room again. So this becomes y equals 1/4 x plus 6, because negative 2 plus 8 is 6. This is my equation, and I'm done. Yay! So my equation is y equals 1/4 x plus 6. So I can write that down here. Y equals 1/4 x plus 6. Okay, so I'd like you to do number 6, and then I'm going to stop this video here and maybe make a different one for the next page in the future. So go ahead and try number 6. I'll put the answer down, but I'm not going to show you the process anymore. I need you to kind of follow your own notes to go through that process and then check to see if you got that right, okay? Okay, did you notice that something very interesting happened? When you found your slope, did you find your slope as 0 over a number? I found mine was 0 over 12. Your slope is 0. So that means when you plug this into your equation, if I picked this as my point, I have y plus 3 equals 0 times x minus 7 in my point slope form. And when I distribute this, everything becomes 0 in my parentheses. So my equation becomes y equals negative 3, which means my graph is going through negative 3 on my y-axis, and it's horizontal. So it's a horizontal line going like this all the way across, going through negative, oh, that's not negative 3, oops, that is positive 3. So I need to go down 3, right? 1, 2, 3. It's going down through negative 3 horizontally. And if you notice, the points given to you do actually end up being on this line. We have 7, negative 3. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 down here as a point. And then we have negative 5, negative 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, down 3, going right here. So see how these points are still on my line? And it makes sense. You can even see that from your picture that it matches up with the equation. So your equation is y equals negative 3, and that's it. Okay, I'm going to make a future video for the back, but I'm going to pause here and just let this information kind of sink in for you because that was a lot today.